Hey everybody, welcome to my first tutorial. Excuse these things. I don't have a proper microphone. And I'm very awkward on camera, so excuse that as well. But today we're going to be making this procedural lens flare tool. So I didn't animate any of this lens flare. It just uses the brightness of the clip and distorts the image and then adds it back on to create a lens flare that you don't have to really do any work for. Once you set up the tool, you can pop this at the end of any shot you want and spit a lens flare out, so it's pretty useful. I should say that this isn't necessarily a physically accurate like lens simulation or anything. There are probably better, smarter ways to get a closer or more like physically accurate effect. This is just a method that I've kind of come up with and use all the time. So hopefully you find it useful. So jumping in, this is the whole script. And so this section here really is the lens flare. Just this part is the plate. This is a shot that I did. Oh, let me move my camera. So this shot I made a couple months ago just as like a test render. And it didn't have a hotspot in it. So I just animated this thing whizzing by. So that looks like this. So really all you need is a plate with a hotspot in it. And so I basically just put a grade note on and multiplied this by 4 so that this is reading at 4, right? And the rest of it is much lower. So I just broke this section off so that I wouldn't have to redo it, and we will make the rest from scratch. So I am just going to put a little dot right here so I can know this is the input, or where my work is going to start, and I'm just going to branch off, and this is just kind of habit. So however you like to do, set up your graph or whatever. So first thing I'm going to do is put a keyer down to extract this bright part. And I'm going to pre-multiply that so that we just, well, you know what that does, hopefully. And I'm going to come down and break this off 2 times. Little glitch. And so I'm going to put a glint down. And so on this first glint, I will make it about that big. This is all, you know, you'll dial it in, and these values will probably change, or you should tweak them shot to shot. But I am going to turn the tolerance all the way down so that everything gets glinted, right? And do the effect only, which doesn't really do anything, I don't think, when the tolerance is all the way down. So here's my first glint, and basically the only thing that I'm going to do to this is blur it a little bit, and then do a second blur and turn this down to kind of just do a quick cheat exponential blur sort of look. And I'm going to crop that so that my bounding box doesn't blow up, right? Keep cropping. And then I'm going to duplicate this setup. So this will be my like kind of initial just little glowy halo. And this one, I'm going to make into kind of like an anamorphic looking streak, but kind of just a more general horizontal streak. It's not necessarily anamorphic. But I'm going to do that in the same thing. I'm going to blur this a bit. And I'm actually on the second one. I'm going to blur it way up, but I'm going to take the height down so that I'm just blurring it sideways. And crop that. And I'm going to add these together. Or maybe I'll screen them. No, I'll add them. Okay. I'm also going to just put down a merge right here so that I can slide this on and off and control this. So that one will control that one. This one will control my horizontal. And this is the first part of the flare. So this is just my sort of glint setup. And I will add that onto my image and see what we've got. So it's super bright, and I'm going to do another one of these to add another sort of like opacity control. And I'm going to turn this way down. So it'll maybe live like right there. And I'm going to turn that one down so it's actually more streaky than it is that general sort of glint. Oh, my AC isn't too loud. I'm going to turn this off. Okay. And I hope this mic doesn't sound really fucked up. So this is my first part of the setup. And let me just glance over. Yeah, I just key it again. So I'm going to copy this part over. And set up the rest of the effect. So these are sort of like this glint and the rest of the flare are a bit separate because this is just glinting the actual bright spots in the image, and over on this side we're going to be distorting the image so much. So we do want some glints on over the actual highlights, right? And so here I'm going to add a constant, and I'm going to make this completely white, and I'm going to reformat this to be the same size as my shot, which is right here, and I'm going to add this vignette, and now I'm just going to dial in this vignette. You know what? Actually, maybe what I'll do is this. I'm going to change it up from the last one. I'm going to add a radial. And I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to blur it. And then I'm going to invert it. And then I'm going to add a grade. We're doing a bunch. I'm not going to invert it. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's okay. I'll bounce back. So this vignette, I should have explained this. So this vignette is basically our distortion map. And so it's a vignette because, we want this white part to distort differently from the edge of the lens, right? We're kind of mimicking that warp that you'll get. So I'm going to put down this X distort node, and if you don't have this node, then do yourself a favor and download, what is this called? The Nuke Survival Kit, I think. It's Tony Lyons, or Tony Lyons made this. He's, Nuke guys will know the name. He's a king, and this kit is very, very awesome. There's tons of stuff in here, and I use it every day. So this will take my source image and we'll change it from noise to map so that we can use the map input. And I'll put that in, and if you see, it already did something. It distorted it a tiny bit. And here's where we can control the values, or control the distortion. So this really is where the kind of magic of the effect happens. Oh wow, there's like a lot of banding from this, I imagine. I don't know why. Let's see. Okay, maybe not. So basically playing with these values, you will get sort of the effect you're looking for. I mean, I think that these will probably change depending on, your resolution and aspect ratio and whatnot. So you'll probably have to fiddle with this to find the right spot. And in the last one that I made, I, fiddled with it for a long time. See, my values are way different. I have -400, 91, and 600. And that looks like this. Let's see. So these look pretty similar. Let's see, I might just keep this one. So I got this, and what I ended up doing was duplicating it and using the same map, but some different values. So I'm going to push it around in a different way. Let's see what values I used for this one. 200, 300, and 300. Ooh, this kind of actually gives me that effect that I wanted. I'm going to keep this value. And I'm going to add this back on top. And maybe make this one a bit lower. And so basically what I'm going to do to these is add the same glint to these things. And you'll see what that does. And now what I'll have is these doodads plus these, and I will add these back on. And now I can just adjust their brightness. And what I might do is add a grade node and gamma down to make these a bit sharper. And so now I've got like 3 controls, so I don't actually need this one. So now I'll have like my controls. So this one will affect how bright these flares are. This one will do my main kind of direct glint. And then this will be everything. And this looks a little plain, right? Like there's not much color on it or anything. So I ended up doing was using another node from that Tony Lyons pack, this chromatic aberration, and putting it on before everything else, and basically doing a very strong chromatic aberration onto my clip before I do anything. And I played with doing it before and after, and I found doing all these distortions to the color difference looked better. It looked more natural and like less like a homogeneous sort of chromatic aberration, like I'm pulling it apart. It's kind of moved with the distortions and whatnot. So there we go. There's some color difference and whatnot. And then really the last key part of this was to take this lens dirt texture that I got for free on actionvfx.com and then multiply it against this. So I'm going to go like this and multiply them against each other so that it only shows up there. And what I will do is gain up on this quite a bit because this is just it's not really reading. So I'm going to gain up kind of a lot. And really I'll mix between this multiplied version and my original. So there's that, and I'm gonna screen it back on top of the regular flare, and believe it or not, one more merge node just to control this opacity so that those so the textured one kind of reads more. And I can control this one by multiplying this up. And then maybe bring this up a little bit more. And this should be pretty close to the other one. We should be basically done. One thing is that this isn't the fastest thing to render because of mainly these two nodes. Doesn't help that it's 4K, but let's do a little preview. So yeah, because this is pretty slow, basically what I'll do is when I mostly do this on like CG stuff. So I'll have my CG clip, but it doesn't have to be, right? So I'll have my clip and I'll run it through this lens flare tool, and I'll output and I'll write out just the flare to disk, and then I'll read that back into my script, and then I can, you know, do all the dial, like gain it down or grade it or kind of fade it in as I want and not have to render this every time because it's not super fast. This one actually has a nice like halo-y effect that I wasn't getting before. And that's really just that distortion is so finicky. Like your results will change a lot based on like kind of what you're doing with that node. This is definitely too much chromatic aberration. It's like a rainbow right now, so I would definitely turn that down. Yeah, but we'll have something to look at in a sec. Let's see. Yeah, this halo, it's like kind of cool, but it is like not circular. It's like boxy. So that I'm not liking. And the chromatic aberration is way too much. So I'm going to tune this down. Something like that. And what I'm actually going to do is in my grade, maybe I can actually do these separately. So maybe I'll like make this one more red. Let's see where that boxiness is coming from. It's gotta be this guy. I did just remember one thing. I made my width 1.5, which it doesn't look like that's doing too much. Interestingly. That looks like it's doing a lot of the boxiness, so. This is actually kind of nice. Although it's odd, it is kind of nice. Let's see what that looks like. I forgot one of my many merge nodes I was forgetting. I'm gonna fade that one down. And blur this one more. Let's see what we're getting. Half a second should be good. Should be enough time. Let's see what we're getting. Yeah, it looks kind of good. So it's not the most physically accurate by any means, but I think, you know, it gestures towards a lens, which is a lot of the time good enough. So thanks for stopping by, checking out the tutorial, you guys. I know I'm really bad on camera, but I'm gonna make another one of these probably. Peace.